Hello, I am. Can you clarify what you mean by adjust logo and time slightly so they're in line with your image? I don't. I'm not passing what that is. I am trying to work out why I'm getting computer audio through the microphone again, because that was showing up, and I don't understand why. It does not seem like a very ideal thing to have be happening. The music is loud because it's running through both the computer and the microphone. That's what I'm currently trying to work out how to deal with. I think that may have fixed it. Okay, we will see how things go. If the music gets... I've got it turned down quite a long way on my headphones so that I can hear myself think, so let me know if the music... Okay, so that kind of makes sense, because that means that the noise being picked up somehow in the noise filter. What? What? Why the heck is... Okay, well, if I just turn that off completely, is it still happening? That's bizarre. I have no idea what... That's very weird. I have no idea why. What? That makes no sense at all. There's literally nothing coming through my headphones. How can... the headphones have been muted. There's only the microphone working. What is going on? Why the flip is audio coming through? I am so confused. Okay, can you still hear music? Okay. You're doing being mad. Okay. Okay, so that's the music that's just coming through from the headphones. This is some nonsense. What on? Okay, so that's going to be some. Yeah, so I'm just trying to isolate while I shut down the music. I'm just trying to isolate what's actually going on to see if that helps me. Because what I did just then was mute the desktop audio in OBS, so the only sound was coming through the mic, which is why it changed tonally. Because it, so the music is now stopped. I'm just. What the flipping heck? I don't understand how that is happening. Okay, whatever, we're leaving this. Whatever. Hi, running commentary, where today, for reasons, my computer has just decided to go completely bonkers, so I don't know what's going on. Whatever. Set review, Ether Drift. Doing things. Hi, this is running commentary. I do the moving on the treadmill with the stats while I do the talking, and sometimes I do the playing of a variety of games, but I'm also a massive Magic nerd, so I do set reviews when Magic sets come out. A Magic sets come out, we're doing a set review. That's how we do things here. Come along, hang out, yell at me if you don't think I'm going fast enough or not engaging with everything enough. It's an interesting challenge in multitasking to walk and talk and game simultaneously. Yeah, the stats are overlapping the window, but it really doesn't matter. It just gives me a bit more space for the window. Ah, makes a difference for shorts. Okay, let's move you, and you, and you. Is that better? And while commentary wife get working on that, let's get this going. We're starting at 1358. Oh, 1358 is when we started moving. But then we have wonky misalignment things that lined up. Okay. And we've got the stats on the screen. Not quite there. There we go. There we go. Oh, because now it does not like that. Okay. There we go. Have some slightly modified stats. Okay. Let's do this. Black, finally. Ancient Vendetta. 3 and a black for a sorcery. Choose a card name. Search target opponent's graveyard, hand, and library for up to 4 cards with that name and exile them. Then that player shuffles. Make peace with your end, for not even your legacy will remain. Brutal. Not a great card in Commander, because unless you are absolutely desperate to hit one very specific card out of your opponent's library, but there are cheaper ways to do that. That's basically what I have to say. This is very much a 60 card sort of card format sort of card, where duplicates are relevant, Back on track. Try and get that better lined up. 4 and a black for a sorcery. Return target creature or vehicle card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Create a pilot. At the tombs before time, the living of Amonkhet made vital alliances with the honored dead. Huh. What have we got? 5 mana Zombify with mild upside of making a pilot. It's not terrible. Okay. We have actual Zombify at 4 mana. Then we've got that 4 mana white card to reanimate an artifact. If you are doing a very vehicles themed deck in mono black, then maybe this is a good pick. Something like King Makar Vehicles. You can tell he's a vehicles commander. He's got car in the name, but the inspired is the main bit because you get to just tap him for free. Sorry, did not sleep super great, but focus. What was I saying? If you're some sort of super vehicles focused deck, this might be good, but otherwise there are probably better options for reanimation effects. If this was any vehicle or artifact instead of just, if this was any creature or artifact instead of just vehicle, I'd probably be higher on it because reanimating it, that gives a lot more versatility. Let's move on. Bloodghast. It's a reprint. It's a double black vampire spirit. It's a 2/1 that can't block, has haste as long as an opponent has 10 or less life, and whenever a land you control enters, you may return this card from your graveyard to the battlefield. The haste rarely comes up in Commander because there's so much life going around, but it remains popular in black featuring deck sacrificey landy decks for doing shenanigans. Summoning it is easy. Controlling it is another matter. I admit the art looks more like a vampire beast than a vampire spirit, but oh well. Carrion Cruiser. This looks like it came straight out of the Necron's Commander deck. 2 and a black for a 3/2 vehicle. When it enters, mill 2 cards, then return a creature or vehicle card from your graveyard to your hand through 1. This is a pretty reasonable little thing. A 3 mana 3/2 Gravedigger with both self-mill and a wider array of targets is pretty reasonable. Not the best way of filling your deck graveyard, but if you're doing artifacty or vehicle things, this is a reasonable thing to consider including. Titan Gravestalker. Why is the scroll so misaligned? 5 and a black for a 5/4. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each artifact and or creature card in your graveyard, cycling 2. Interesting thing. So you can either get rid of it to put a creature in your graveyard, or you can play it for cheap if your graveyard is already full. Nice interactions on both sides, and it's nothing very special as a card, it's just a potentially 1 mana 5/4, but hey, a 1 mana 5/4 is pretty reasonable even in Commander, where power levels are insane. The Speed Brew doesn't differentiate between salvage and carrion. That's a good point. Also worth noting that it cares about artifacts in your graveyard, not just creature cards. Which means that you can accelerate this out even faster than similar types of effects. Cryptcaller Chariot. 3 and a black For a 5/5 vehicle with Menace, whenever you discard one or more cards, create that many 2/2 black zombie creatures with crew 2. So, wants to be in a very specific self-discarding deck, but if it's in there, this is very, very strong. Just every card you discard is a 2/2 zombie. It's a very powerful ability. 4 mana's are kind of a lot, but it's certainly not unreasonable compared to similar versions of this effect. And of course, once you've discarded everything to have a million 2/2 zombies, it's very easy to crew this, and a 5/5 Menace is nothing to sneeze at. Great card if you're in any sort of black featuring self-discard deck. They too deserve to witness Amonkhet's rebirth, says Zahur. Curse Cloth Wrappings. This is, I need to put onto my list. Curse Cloth Wrappings. 2 black for an artifact. Zombies you control get +1/+1. And target creature card in your graveyard gains Embalm until end of turn. The Embalm cost is equal to its mana cost. And to embalm something, you exile it and pay its embalm cost and create a token that's a copy of it, except it's a white zombie with no mana cost. I need to look and see if this is good enough for Ratadrabik. Zombies you control get +1/+1. 4 mana for an artifact lord that is pretty bad. But adding on the you get to just keep recasting things from your graveyard is pretty nice. This is something that you'd compare to something like Whip of Erebos, and I think it compares quite favourably to that. Let me just bring up Whip of Erebos for those who don't... Dear Lord, what is this spelling? So, Whip of Erebos is a 4 mana legendary artifact enchantment. Creatures you control have lifelink, and for 4 mana, you get something back with haste and exile it at the next end step. Same entry mana cost, +1/+1 instead of lifelink, pretty even, I would say, on a lot of the time, and changing a fixed cost to return any creature to cost of is the mana value, but you get to keep the copy permanently. I think if you're in a deck where you're getting a lot of value out of Whip of Erebos, you probably want to consider either swapping it for the wrappings or just upgrading it, or not upgrading it, swapping it out or finding a slot for the Curse Cloth as well, unless you're specifically getting advantage out of the lifelink that the Whip gives, which is certainly a reasonable thing to be getting advantage from. There are plenty of decks that care about that extra life. It's worth noting that whatever you're embalming does come out as a zombie, so this Lord effect applies to every creature that you have embalmed. I think this card is going to be something of a sleeper. Get your hands on it while it's still relatively cheap, unless other people have already said this card's insane. Because I think this card is kind of bonkers. First Cloth Wrapping. Wrappings. Deathless Pilot. 1 and a black for a 2/2 zombie pilot. Saddles as though 2 or greater, and 4 mana, return this card from your graveyard to your hand. Amonkhet champions become markedly more reckless after dying. Yeah, that makes sense. What do we think about this? 2 mana creature that pilots as though it had 4 power, that can recur. Again, if you're super into a black-based vehicles deck, this is probably reasonable. 4 mana to put it back into your hand is really expensive for recursion, so probably not really worth it anywhere else. Demonic Junker. 6 and a black for a 4/3 artifact vehicle with affinity for artifacts. When it enters, for each player, destroy up to one target creature that player controls. If a creature you controlled was destroyed this way, put 2+1/+1 counters on this vehicle and through for 2. So, here is the powerhouse of the black vehicles deck. 7 mana is a lot, but affinity for artifacts makes this cheap. Honestly, you can probably play this in most black decks. It doesn't really have to care about the vehicles part or the artifacts part. Like, most decks have a few artifacts lying around. If you cast this for 5 mana, blow up something for each opponent, that's an enormous amount of value. The only downside, as far as I'm concerned, is because it's a vehicle and not a creature, it's much harder to set up reanimation or blinking loops. Oop. Sorry, don't know how long that notification was there. That was phone trying to update in the middle of a stream. Great. What was I saying? So yeah. 7 mana 4/3, destroy a creature destroy up to one creature for each player. If you destroy your own, you get counters on this. And then affinity for artifacts, so you can easily be playing this for 4 or 5 mana instead of 7. If you're playing it for 5, this is great. If you're playing it for less than that, this is excellent. If you're in a position to get counters on this and crew it, it is absurd. Anything else I need to be saying about this? Nope, I think that. Engine Rat. A single black 1/1 Death Touch zombie rat. 6 mana. Each opponent loses 2 life. In the land of undeath, permanent pest control solutions are few and far between. I can see how that would be a problem. 1 mana, 1/1 Death Touch. We've seen a million of these with various sorts of upside. It's just another one. Zombie and rat are both pretty decent creature types, so that's worth bearing in mind. 6 mana to make each opponent lose 2 life is not great, but you're generally just playing this to have a 1/1 Death Touch, and if you ever get to that late stage, then having a mana sink is nice. If you're doing stuff, the Death Touch thing, here's a new upgrade for your Death Touch thing. If you desperately want a cheap zombie or rat to gum up the board, here's one of those. If you are looking to do the life loss thing, this is probably not your go-to. Gas Guzzler. Single black mana for a 2/1 vampire rogue with start your engines, enters tapped, and has max speed, black, sacrifice another creature or vehicle, draw a card. Gastal's vampires took fuel from the dead. So Gastal is a plane we have not seen before, and is apparently a Mad Max style world where the vampires apparently drink petrol? I got nothing. It's a 2/1 that becomes a sack outlet event for card draw. If you're doing rogues, a 1 mana 2/1 isn't horrible, or vampires, but it's not great either. Both of those are decks that are aggressive enough and evasive enough that you should be able to get max speed relatively straightforwardly. Black and sack to draw a card is not exceptional, but certainly not anything to complain at. If you're looking for a sack outlet or a card advantage engine, and you think you can get to max speed reliably, this is a solid 1-drop. If you can't get to the max speed, this is not a great card. Gastal Raider. 2 and a 2 and 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 When this creature enters, target opponent reveals their hand, you choose an instant or sorcery from it, that player discards that card. If you have max speed, this creature has +1/+1 and menace. Win or lose, she will sate her hunger. Okay, so we've got a 3-mana duress that can be 3-mana 2/1 with duress that can become a 3/2 menace. Very meta dependent. Like, if you are very desperate to make sure your opponent doesn't have a counter spell or a key removal spell, then I guess this is okay, but this is probably worse than, what was this? Like Thought Stalker? And like, if you're looking to do that, I'd probably just run Thought Stalker Warlock, which is already the menace. You lose a power, but you can hit anything instead of just instants or sorceries. I don't know. That enter the battlefield feels very restrictive and probably not worth it unless you are in a very narrow deck like mono black rogues. Gonti, Knight Minister. 2 black for a 3/4 legendary Aetherborn rogue. Whenever a player casts a spell they don't own, that player creates a treasure token. Whenever a creature deals combat damage to one of your opponents, its controller looks at the top card of that opponent's library and exiles it face down. They may play that card for as long as it remains exiled. Mana of any type can be spent to cast a spell this way. So, this is a very weird... Sorry. Any player casts any spell they don't own. They make a treasure. And any creature deals combat damage to an opponent... Oh, that's not 1 or more. Okay, that's interesting. Sorry, I'm just trying to process everything this card does. Kind of wish he had, I don't know, Death Touch or Menace or something to make it easier for Gonti to get through and hit things. As it is, this is very much a sit back and let your minions do all the work for you sort of card. So, incentivizes your opponents to attack other people, yes. Gives you a whole pile of cards if you could manage to hit with multiple things, yes. Every time anyone casts someone else's spell, they make a treasure, which helps you keep going. Okay. Gonna be great inside Prosper decks. Feels very weirdly group sluggy. Probably something I should consider putting in my Atlantis. Hey, everyone attack, no, don't attack me. Not sure how I feel. Like, if you're in some sort of, what is it, Shire? Is that who I'm thinking of? Some sort of deck where you have huge numbers of tiny creatures, or huge amounts of excess mana off of something like Urborg Cabal Coffers, so that you can cast huge piles of the extra spells you're getting access to. This could be interesting. Doesn't seem enormously powerful, but feels like there's a lot of weird potential going on in there to mess around with. This is the sort of card that I'm going to forget about for 3 years, and then someone will play it against me, and I'll be like, huh, that's a lot. Why haven't I seen this card? And then come back and be like, oh no, I do remember this card, I just completely forgot about it. Neat art. Gonti is watching. I don't know. If you decide to do something fun with it, let me know which way you decide to go. I really cannot tell if this is powerful or not. Like, giving your opponents treasures and cards feels dangerous. So, unless you are built... to reduce your opponent's ability to take advantage of that, or in such a way that you're going to be taking much more advantage of it, this is a card to be very cautious of playing yourself. I don't know if you just play it with Painful Quandary so that your opponents are murdering themselves if they want to try and take advantage of all the extra spells you're giving them. But then they just have a handful of spells because they're casting from exile instead of from their hand, so they can just discard. I don't know. This card is very hard to evaluate, is my opinion. And I still wish he had some sort of evasion or protection, because if you make a massive attack and then they just Doomblade this in response, or go for the throat, or whatever, path to exile. If they kill this before you get to hit with stuff, you are probably in trouble. Grim Bauble. Single black artifact. When it enters, target creature an opponent controls gets -2/-2 until end of turn. And 3 tap, sack, surveil 2. If you're in the market for Durdly artifact things, hey look, we've got you some Durdly artifact things. So, any of the sort of Esper artifact shenanigans, sacrifice them, loop them, go round and round in circles with artifacts that turn into artifacts that turn into artifacts that recur the artifacts. -2/-2 for 1 mana is a staple at Magic. The fact that it's an artifact means it's pretty easily recurable. The fact that it costs black instead of colourless is a little bit inconvenient. And sacrificing for Surveil 2 probably won't come up a huge amount, but will feel good when you go to an end step with stuff availability and go, you know what? Let's just chuck this in and see what sort out the top of my deck, because I'm empty-handed. Grim Javelineer. 2 and a black for a 3/2 human warrior. Whenever you attack, target attacking creature gets +1/+0 until end of turn. When that creature dies this turn, surveil 1. Hetty lost everything to the Eternals and the Phyrexians. What she gained was an intimate knowledge of death in its myriad forms. Poor Ketty. So, send something to attack, it gets a little bit bigger. If they block and kill it, you get to surveil 1. Kinda clunky, but this is only a common after all. There's a limit to how much we can expect. Getting an upside on either doing more damage, trading up, or surveilling, I guess is pretty nice. The fact that she doesn't have to attack herself and can just sit back and you can just throw random 1/1s at attackers, 2/1s at opponents just to keep surveilling is kind of nice. Interesting card. Does quite a lot of work. At least as far as commons go. Hellish Sideswipe. Single black sorcery. As an additional cost to cast a spell, sacrifice an artifact or creature. Destroy target creature or vehicle. If you sacrificed a vehicle to cast this, draw a card. Good flavor text. Might makes right of way. Get off the road! Okay. This is fun. Okay, so black and sacrifice something to destroy something we've seen for a long time. Sacrifice any artifact or creature to destroy a creature or vehicle is quite nice. And if you happen to decide that you have a vehicle worth getting rid of, you get to replace it with a card draw. Important to note, the vehicle it cares about is the one you have sacrificed to cast it, not the one that you are destroying. You can destroy a creature or vehicle and still get a card draw as long as you sacrificed an artifact vehicle to cast this spell. If you're in a very vehicle-heavy black deck again, seems like a reasonable removal spell. Sorcery does hurt it. It is a sorcery. But this is generally going to be, even without, I think, getting fixated on the draw card is going to be a mistake. What is it? Bone shard? Unshard. Bone shards. Okay, no, I'm thinking of the wrong card. Bone splinters is what I'm thinking. Like, the original version of this effect is Bone Splinter, single black, only option is sacrifice a creature, destroy a creature. If you're in a sacrificey style deck, or one where you make a lot of random treasures, then just being able to go sack a treasure, destroy a creature, or vehicle is a pretty decent upgrade on several versions of this effect that we've seen. Hour of Victory. 2 and a black, enchantment. Start your engines. When this enchantment enters, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. And if you have max speed, sacrifice this enchantment and search your library for a card, only as a sorcery. So, 3 mana, start your engines, make a 2/2, and then max speed, demonic shooter. This feels clunky. 3 mana for a 2/2 is not good. 3 mana for a 2/2 that starts your engines probably also isn't that good. 3 mana for a 2/2 that in 3 to 5 turns lets you demonic shooter is just so very slow. I think this is a bad card. I do not think that this is worth trying to make work. It is nice to have the big story spotlight moment where we get to see who are the winners and get to take a moment to go, wait a minute, I thought Chandra wanted the big shiny bottle. Why have these guys got it? And some incentive there to actually go and read the story, but other than that, I don't think this card does much. Intimidation Tactics. Single black, sorcery. Target opponent reveals their hand, you choose an artifact or creature from it, exile that card, or cycling for 3. This is still a negotiation. We haven't broken anything. Yet. Artifact or creature, exile it for 1 mana. Sure, great. If you draw it late game, when your opponents are all empty-handed, cycle it for 3, replace it. Expensive, but that's pretty common on these high interactivity cheap spells. If you're looking to hand attack, this is a pretty decent way to go about it, because not filling your opponent's graveyard is always valuable. Alaxion, Hunger Tyrant. 1 black. Legendary creature Crocodile. 7/2. Galadak's Scar is full of craters which are home to terrifying predators of immense size and savagery. Yet even among such company, Alaxion and her insatiable hunger eclipses them all. Okay, so we have a big hungry crocodile. It's a 3 mana 7/2. If you like cheap creatures that hit hard, then hooray. All I want from this is to have a set on Muruganda so that we can actually meet Kalak, who this is apparently the scion of. Anyway, big vanilla crocodile, bitey, chompy. 2 toughness makes it very vulnerable, but 7 power makes it very scary. The Last Ride. Single black, legendary artifact vehicle. It is a 13/13 that gets -X, where X is your life total. For 2 and a black, pay 2 life, draw a card, and crew 2. The rearview mirror showed Winter what awaited him should he fail. Okay, so... how low do you want to get your life total in a Commander game, people? We've got Death Shadow as a vehicle, which does at least have the advantage of you can just play this early and it isn't a problem as long as you don't crew it, and you can just incrementally draw some cards out of it when you need to. The downside, 3 mana and 2 life to draw a card is an incredibly expensive rate. And yes, the losing 2 life helps fuel this, but we've got a long way to go to get that down to 12 life. I think this is rarely going to be worth it in Commander. Go play it in Standard or Modern or wherever they've worked out how to do degenerate things with it. All you constructed players rejoice. They made a mythic rare that wasn't for Commander. Locust Spray. For a single black instant, target creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn, cycling for a black. Captain, the cowards are throwing bugs at us, says Sphere, the Keelhauler Lookout. 1 mana instant to give -1/-1 is really not that great. Cycling on this is pretty irrelevant. This is probably not worth doing anything with. Moving on. Maximum Overdrive. 1 and a black instant. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. It gains Death Touch and Indestructible until end of turn. Now this is more reasonable in Commander. +1/+1 Death Touch and Indestructible says, whatever this combat was, I'm winning it. Compared to the fuel wars on Gastel, this Grand Prix is a thrilling vacation. If you're in the market for black-based combat tricks, this is a very good one. It's also just sometimes, because it gives Death Touch and Indestructible, sometimes you won't even care about casting it in combat. You'll just use it to go, oh, that board wipe? Nope, my creature comes out of it bigger and better. +1/+1 and Indestructible. Nice pairing. +1/+1 counter and Death Touch are a bit of a non-synergy, but oh well. It's not like we're going to complain about either of them. Momentum Breaker. 1 and a black enchantment. Start your engines. When this enchantment enters, each opponent sacrifices a creature or vehicle of their choice. Each opponent who can't discards a card. To sacrifice this, you gain life equal to your speed. We have finally found it. We have finally found a card that cares about your speed that isn't just max speed. Rapture Day. Also, this is a great card. 2 mana each opponent sacrifices is very, very reasonable, and being an enchantment makes it quite easy to set up recursion with this, and then if you're setting up some sort of recursive loop, you can sacrifice it to itself to gain a bit of life every time. Strong card. Be cautious if your opponent plays this in some... is it? Not Miracle, is it? No, that's non-token creatures. Anixia? So, something like Anixia, where you get to play it, sack it, get it back, sack it. Good card. I mean, not sure it's quite good enough for any of the decks that I'm playing, or at least doesn't interact with them, but I think strong enough for me to at least consider putting somewhere. Mutant Surveyor. 2 and a black for a 2/3. Start your engines. Mutant Scout. 2 mana, gets +1/+1 till end of turn, and if you have max speed, you can pay 3, exile it from your graveyard, draw a card. Sure, it's part of this cycle of starts your engines, and then exile it from your graveyard later. Again, if you're desperate to get your engine started, this one at least does stuff on the battlefield. It's expensive to pump it, but at least has that option. But I don't have much more to say about it. On we go. Hello, creepy. Packed Doll Terror. 3 and a black for a 3/4 artifact creature toy. Whenever this creature or another artifact you control enters, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. And you're telling me this was designed for children? This is a scary, scary card. If this enters the battlefield, you have to kill it immediately, because whoever's doing it is about to make 20 artifacts and just kill the table. When this enters, or another artifact you control enters, doesn't say non-token, so all those treasures that Prosper's throwing out kills you. Play this, play Brass's Bounty, go mad. Like, play this in Esper, set up your artifact sacrifice recursion loops, drain out the table. Scary, scary card. Wog Feast. 1 and a black sorcery. Choose target creature, planeswalker, or vehicle. Mill 2 cards, then destroy the chosen permanent if its mana value is less than or equal to the number of cards in your graveyard. Okay, what the? Right. Choose a creature, planeswalker, or vehicle. Mill 2. Then, if creatures in graveyard is equal to or greater than the mana value of your target, destroy the target. High risk reward, but if you're playing self-mill, this is probably one of your better removal options. You just smash your library into your graveyard and to destroy whatever your problem is, and creatures, planeswalkers, and vehicles is a pretty wide selection. Speed Brood races are gregarious while not racing, but everyone must eat. And let's just move on from the very creepy art. Ripclaw Wrangler. 3 and a black for a 4/3 artifact vehicle. When it enters, each opponent discards a card, crew 2. By the time Shantanu heard the End Riders chanting, "The Claw!" he was already in its grasp. What we've got? 4 mana to make each opponent discard a card is not a great rate. A 4/3 that crews 2 is fine, but not exciting. This is generally, I think, not worth the effort. Risen Necro-Regent. 4 and a black for a 5/4 Zombie Cat Knight. Start your engines, and if you have max speed, at the beginning of your end step, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. In life, she commanded the respect of her army. In death, she demands it. Okay. A 5/4 that makes a 2/2 every end step is fine. Zombie, cat, and knight are all pretty good creature types, so worth considering if you're running title in any of those. Again, just comes down to how efficiently you can get your engine up to max speed. If this is the card you're playing to start your engines, it's probably not going to be worth it, because you're going to have to wait another 3 turns before you get anything extra out of her. So really, this wants to come down when you are already close to or at max speed, so she can start dropping 2/2s immediately. If she's not doing that, she is a lot worse. Onward. Risky Shortcut. 2 and a black sorcery. Draw 2 cards. Each player loses 2 life. Don't think of it as cheating. Think of it as track they forgot to lay out for us. My watermelons! Watermelons getting blown up here. And also back there. I do not see any cabbages. Very disappointing. Come on, wizards, what are you doing? Like, I'm aware this is a Vishkar. It's watermelons and pomegranates, not... But still. Surely the meme is worth it. Anyway, draw 2, each player loses 2. Hello, power creep. This card, if you're running the draw 2, lose 2, this is better. If you're running the scry 2, draw 2, lose 2, this is probably worse. I would take, generally, scrying 2 before drawing over just pinging my opponents a little bit. But you do you. If you're in the sort of deck that really wants to make each opponent lose 2, this is a reasonable card, I think. Sheffet Archfiend. 5 black for a 5/5 creature demon with some really metal art. I mean, look at this guy. It's a 5/5 flyer. When it enters, all other creatures get -2/-2 until end of turn, and cycles for 2. So, 2 mana, put it in a graveyard, and then reanimate it when you need it. 7 mana to do this is a lot, but you do get rid of every small thing on the board and leave yourself with a 5/5 flyer. Sometimes that's going to be worth it. Don't think this is a good card unless you're looking to reanimate it, but if you are in something like Merrin, where you just want to fill your graveyard and have a whole toolbox of options, this is a pretty solid consideration. Because you just cycle it away early, reanimate it later when the board state is appropriate. This is no Massacre Worm, but at least it graveyards itself for you. The Speed Demon. 3 black for a legendary creature demon with flying, trample, and start your engines. At the beginning of your end step, you draw X cards and lose X life, where X is your speed. Caution is for those who falter. So, 5 mana, 5/5 flying trample. That is going to get you increase your speed pretty much every turn in a commander game. There is going to be someone who takes damage from a 5 flying trample. And then it's just an endless source of card draw. You will eventually need to start watching your life total, because with speed 3 or 4, you're drawing a lot of cards and losing a lot of life. But you're also hopefully just utterly crushing the game at that point because you have so many extra cards. Legendary, so can be your commander. Powerful draw engine. Yeah, just big smashy card advantage guy. Have fun, go wild. Spin out. 1 black, instant. Destroy target creature or vehicle. Okay. Strict upgrade over murder. If you're still running murder. I don't know why you'd still be running murder. Good sportsmanship wins the crowd. Bad sportsmanship wins the race. Yeah, I'd say that seems accurate, but we know that Winter didn't win the race, and I have no idea what the sportsmanship of the Amikesi are like, so not really sure how to respond to that. Streaking Oil Gorger. 4 and a black for a flying haste vampire. It's a 3/3 with start your engines, and if you have max speed, this creature has lifelink. They feed on oil? Where were they during the Phyrexian invasion? Says Chandra Nalar. That is an interesting question, but I feel like if they tried to eat Phyrexian oil, they would just end up converted. And then you'd have Phyrexian vampires trying to eat the race, which doesn't sound ideal. Anyway, 5 mana, 3/3 flying haste, not great. If you can get it lifelink, it becomes slightly more interesting, but again, start your engines, I am not convinced on as a mechanic. it takes a lot of setup to get your payoff. And again, this payoff is pretty mediocre. Siphon Fuel. 4 and a black, instant. Target creature gets -6/-6 until end of turn. You gain 2 life. After years of hunger, the oil-thirsting vampires of Gastel finally had their fill. -6/-6 is a big minus, but 5 mana is a big cost. And if you're doing that, we have 5 mana just exile things in black. What is it? Final? Yeah, Final Death. 5 mana, instant, exile target creature. Why would you... Unless you're absolutely desperate for another gain 2 life trigger, I do not see why you would run Siphon Fuel over Final Death. Wickerfolk Indomitable. 3 and a black for an artifact creature Scarecrow. It's the 4/3, and you may cast this card from your graveyard by paying 2 life and sacrificing an artifact or creature in addition to paying its other costs. Some horrors are created. Others are the recognition of a possibility that has always existed. That flavor text is kind of a miss for me. I'm not really sure what it's trying to say, but 4 mana 3/3 that you can keep recurring. Not incredible, but if you're in the want things dying and coming back and dying and coming back, this is another reasonable filler piece for that sort of deck. Wreckage of Wickerfolk. 1 and a black for an artifact creature Scarecrow. It's a 1/3 with flying when it enters Surveil 2. Just a filler card. A 1/3 flyer is pretty solid as a blocker. Surveilling 2 is a nice little ETB. If you want to do artifact dirtly things or Scarecrow things, this is a pretty reasonable piece. IMO. Wretched Doll. Sorry, I'm just taking my time to really let that art sink in. 1 and a black for a 3/1 artifact creature toy. Black tap Surveil 1. Huh. That's a pretty nice ability. There's probably some ways to take massive advantage of that. A 2 mana 3/1 isn't very exciting. Lots of folk on Duskmourn are more scared of dying than what comes after. Oh, how wrong they are. I don't know. If you're in the market for some sort of continuous surveilling effect, this one's kind of interesting, but that's about it. It's not going to get promoted past, kind of interesting. Promo art. Somewhere down here we'll hit some commander cards. Lost Monarch of Ifnir. 3 and a black for a 4/4 zombie noble. It has Afflict 3. Afflict is whenever this creature becomes blocked, the defending player loses 3 life. So you attack with your 4/4, they block it with a 1/1, they still lose 3 life. Nice. Other zombies you control have Afflict 3. You attack with your army of zombies, they block them, they take a pile of life loss. At the beginning of your second main phase, if a player was dealt combat damage by a zombie this turn, mill 3 cards, then you may return a creature card from your graveyard to your hand. So, we attack in with our zombies. They sit there and go, I can block the zombies and take 3 life at each zombie I block, or I can let that 2/2 zombie hit me, but then you get card advantage. I do love cards that make my opponents have difficult choices. I'm kind of sad. I feel like this could have been in standard. Although, bringing Afflict in for just 1 card is probably not worth it. How did I... There we go. But, yeah. If you're making a lot of zombies, this is an excellent card. If you just want... I don't think this is worth it by itself, just for messing with your graveyard, because most people will go, if you attack with this 4/4, most people will happily block and just take the 3 from the Afflict. and a 4/4 is not big enough to only ever get chump block and will quite often find it has no attacks. You want to be playing this in a deck where you go, here are my 10 2/2 zombies, splunge. But constant card advantage, if you can keep doing that, is pretty nice. Onwards. Corpse Augur. This must be a reprint. I'm sure we've seen Corpse Augur before. 3 and a black for a 4/2 zombie wizard. When it dies, you draw X cards and lose X dice, but X is the number of creature cards in target player's graveyard. Any player. So if your graveyard is that, you just look around until you find someone who has the exact right amount of cards that you're happy to go, I want that many cards and lose that much life, please and thank you. Cryptbreaker, another zombie reprint. Black, 1/1. 2 mana, discard a card, make a 2/2. Tap 3 untapped zombies, draw a card and lose a life. It just loops zombies in and out and round and round. Has been a powerhouse in zombie deck since we first saw it. If you don't have one, pick one up. Grave Titan, I'm not even going to bother. We know what Grave Titan does, surely. Grave Crawler, another very popular reprint, Midnight Reaper. Come on. Oh, I'm going mad. We're just only seeing reprints here. That's why. Onwards, 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 onwards. Let's just get to the end of this. Red cards. Right. I'm gonna really slow down a bit. Hydrate some. Whew. I am out of practice at this walking and talking thing. And I'm not even trying to play games at the moment. Although, when I'm playing games, I've got slightly more excuse to not talk for at least a few seconds at a time. Whew. Yeah. Still 3 colours in and really not vibing with this set that much. Oh well. This product is not for you. Sure is a thing. That's fine. There's a couple of cards I'm interested in. I'll get to sit down and just work my way through my commander decks and go just make final decisions about, are any of these things good enough to make it to replace what's there? That's the fun I have at new sets. Like, not so much seeing all the new cards, but just the tiny tweakings to the decks I've already got. And very, very occasionally, something will be spoiled that I get super hyped for. Go on, tell me. What's the thing that you get most excited for during spoilers, pre-release, new sets? Do some engagement farming. I'm on the internet. Smash that button, like and subscribe. I don't know. I don't care. Like, if you want to come and hang out with me and just listen to me ramble, then while I pretend I'm getting some exercise in, and that is cool. Should check to see if I've had any messages while I'm... Nope. Great. Had a series of texts from some engineers that they were going to come at 8 o'clock this morning. So now 11. Have seen nothing. Oh, well. Okay. Up we go again. Red cards. Adrenaline Jockey. 2 and a red for a Minotaur pilot. It is a 3/3. Whenever a player casts a spell, if it's not their turn, this creature deals 4 damage to them. Whenever you activate an exhaust ability, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. Either I win or we both lose. Take your pick. I think in Commander, that first effect is going to have a lot more relevance than the second one, but that first effect is a real kick in the teeth for quite a lot of decks. I think that if you're playing something aggressive or burny or hate bearsy, this is a great card. Just really makes your opponents have to think about when they're doing their things. Mobile. 2 red. When it enters, add 4 mana of any one color. Spend this mana only to activate abilities. X2 red, exhaust. Deal X damage to any target. Put a +1/+1 counter on this vehicle. It is a 5/5 with crew 2. So, absolute worst case scenario. 4 mana. This enters. You have nothing else to do with the mana, so you just exhaust it. You have a 6/6 vehicle and deal 1 damage to any target. For 4 mana. That's pretty reasonable. I have seen some people trying to work out how to set up infinite loops where you flicker this and keep generating the 4 mana, keep using the exhaust ability, and just infinitely blink and ping everyone to death. It feels convoluted, but yep, that option sure is there. It's difficult because this is a vehicle and not a creature, so there have been all sorts of shenanigans going on. But if you're in a deck with a lot of activated abilities, then this is a great one. If you're in a deck where you just want something big and aggressive with some flexibility, this is solid. If you're in a deck where you are looking to set up infinite loops and combos, then this is another option in that sort of shenanigans. Burner Rocket. 1 and a red, 3/1 artifact vehicle with flash. When it enters, target creature you control gets +2/+0 and trample until end of turn. Cruise for 1. So it's a vehicle that's a combat trick. You just flash it in and mess up combat and dish out some trample damage, and then you have a 3/1 with crew 1 that you can do something with later. Not particularly thrilling, but is fine. Oh, sorry. I completely missed actually getting a response to that. Playing new cards is fun. Enjoy the pre-release experience. Sure. Casual. He says. Randomly insulting commentary wife. Scrub. Why don't you like looking at the cards and working out how to make a profit from them like a real Magic player? That sounds absolutely miserable. I really do not understand the psychology of trying to profiteer on Magic. It's bizarre to me. Burnout Bastronaut. I like everyone being on the same level for red. Yep. That is, in theory, the fun of pre-releases, although experience counts for a huge amount, and play boosters mean that pools are more imbalanced than they have ever been, because there can be such a huge difference in the number of rares floating around between 2 different boxes. If you want everyone on the same level, then you need to run new player drafts or something. Anyway, let's get this set review done before I talk myself to death. Burnout Bastronaut. This is a terrible card name. I do not like it. Single red for a 1/1 Goblin Warrior with Menace. Has start your engines, 2 mana to give it +1/+0, and if you have max speed, this creature has double strike. Okay, this is actually a good max speed card. A 1/1 with Menace is going to get your speed up pretty quickly if you manage to get it down on turn 1. The expensive fire breathing is expensive, but if you can get this double strike, then that starts adding up pretty nicely. I don't think this card is incredible, but if you're looking to do the speed thing, this is probably one of the best cards to get you going. Chandra, Spark Hunter, do that Akira slide. 3 and a red for a legendary Chandra. 4 loyalty. At the beginning of combat on your turn, choose up to 1 target vehicle you control. Until end of turn, it becomes an artifact creature and gains haste. 2+2. You may sacrifice an artifact or discard a card and draw a card. 0. Create a 3/2 colors vehicle artifact token with crew 1. And -7. You get an emblem with, whenever an artifact you control enters, this emblem deals 3 damage to any target. Right. So you can ultimate in 3 turns. The vehicle's only until end of turn. This is a very strange Chandra. She does not set things on fire until the very end. So, card draw and jump up chunks of loyalty, or make 3/2s which you can turn into hasty creatures. No defenses other than her high loyalty. Or if you have other things to crew the vehicles and you choose not to attack with them after you create them. This Chandra, what are you doing? Some card filtering, sort of creature creation, and eventually maybe some damage dealing. I don't know. If you're in a mono red artifact deck, maybe she's okay. Is there an otherwise you're right, or if you're in a major vehicles deck where just you're playing her mostly for that passive effect of just guarantee you can crew a vehicle every turn. Maybe if you have some shenanigans so that you can accelerate your way up to her emblem and cheat that out fast, so I don't know. There are probably things you can do with her to increase her power, but the base level she offers is not very exciting. Clamorous Ironclad. 3 and a red for an artifact vehicle. It is a 6/3 with menace, crews for 3, and has cycling for a red. So, want it in your graveyard? You can get it in your graveyard very easy. Want a 6/3 menace for relatively cheap mana cost? We've got that, but crew for 3 is still quite a lot. Overall, it's fine. If you can take advantage of putting it in your graveyard, that's probably the best plan for it. Or play it with Chandra so that you don't have to deal with the crew 3ing of it. Count on Luck. Red, red, red enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card this turn. With your help, Loot, we're going to make a hell of an entrance, said Chandra. In less than 15 minutes, she came to regret those words. This is impressive. It took Chandra a whole 15 minutes to regret saying something. Look at that character growth. Okay, enough dunking on Chandra. Triple red for this impulse draw. Difficult to cast unless you're in mono red, but this sort of card advantage continues to be very useful, especially in mono red, which otherwise would struggle for it. I don't think we've ever seen this effect at just 3 mana. We've seen lots of versions of this at 4. Prosper decks are going to love it. Any of the cast from exile type things are going to love it. most mono red commanders are going to like it just for that relatively cheap. Like, compare this with something like Phyrexian Arena that black gets. You can see the comparison pretty easily here. This casting cost is more prohibitive. You don't have the life loss. If a mono black deck still runs Phyrexian Arena, your mono red deck runs this. Crash and Burn. 3 and a red, instant, choose one. Destroy target vehicle, or deal 6 damage to target creature or planeswalker. Instant does a lot of work here, but this is still kind of expensive for what it does. If it was destroy target artifact, maybe we'd be talking. Redshift told his team to destroy the competition. They were thrilled to discover he meant it literally. Destroy a vehicle or 6 damage to a creature or planeswalker. You'd basically only be playing this for the 6 damage effect. 6 damage to a creature or planeswalker for 4 mana isn't horrible. Instant speed does help, but it's not the most compelling of cards. Doretti, Rocketeer Engineer. What have they done to this guy? This is what is... I mean, really get it. This face is not that face. Right? I mean, he still has the sideburns, I guess, but... Anyway. Doretti, Rocketeer Engineer. 4 and a red for a legendary creature Goblin Artificer. He is a star 5. His power is equal to the greatest mana value among artifacts you control. And when he enters or attacks, choose an artifact card in your graveyard. You may sacrifice an artifact. If you do, return the chosen card to the battlefield. So, when he enters or attacks, you get to trash for treasure, and his power changes based on the highest mana value of an artifact on your battlefield. Interesting card. There's probably some very broken things you can do with him, but 5 mana is kind of a lot. Although, so you're just playing a load of rummage effects, draw, discard, discard, draw, discard, draw, fill your graveyard, get a treasure in play, an 8 or 9 drop artifact in the graveyard, hit Doretti, shwoomph, get your value that way. I don't know. It feels like he wants to just... He's only really going to be good in some sort of combo shenanigans shell. Or artifact control nonsense. What's the thing? Not the taco, not... What the heck card am I thinking of? Is it not Monument? Memorial. Chroma's Memorial. Like, this is going to be one of the better things to have in your graveyard. It's 7 mana, and creature controller flying, first strike, vigilance, trample, haste, and protect from black and red. So, you get a treasure in play, you play Doretti, you bring back a Chroma's Memorial, you immediately get to attack with Doretti as a 7 power, flying, first strike, vigilance, trample, hate, and protection from black and red, and then if you have another cheap artifact and something good in your graveyard, you can immediately get those as well. I think he has the potential to be very strong, but the deck build is going to be interesting, trying to balance getting cheap artifacts in play, getting cards into your graveyard. Draconautics Engineer. 1 and a red for a 2/2 Goblin Artificer. Exhaust. Pay a red. Other creatures you control gain haste until end of turn. Put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. And exhaust. 3 and a red. Create a 4/4 red dinosaur dragon creature token with flying. Here, we really start to see exhaust being utilized. A reminder that exhaust means you can only do this once a game, unless you can reset it. So, you play this, at some point you make a 4-4, at some other point you give your entire board haste and turn this into a 3-3. I think quite a powerful card, despite the limitations of the exhaust ability. A 2-2 that, like, you would, if I said 4 red, create a 2-2 and a 4-4 flyer, that is completely reasonable. If I said that also lets you pay a red to give, if I said 4 mana and triple red, create a 3-3 and a 4-4 and give all your creatures haste, then we're on board with this. The fact that you get to spread those out over multiple turns just makes it even better. There is tracking issues involved. You do have to set things up so that you can remember that you have used the exhaust abilities and not accidentally try and use them again. But I think a pretty decent little card. Dracosaur Auxiliary. 4 red, for a creature, dinosaur, dragon mount. It has flying and haste, and is a 4-4, and whenever this creature attacks while saddled, it deals 2 damage to any target, and it saddles for 3. So, 6 mana, 4-4 flying haste is your very bog standard volcanic dragon. I'm still super zoomed in. You've got your 6 mana, 4-4 flying haste. This is Volcanic Dragon with a chunk of upside. Yes, Saddle 3 is expensive, but being able to snipe down whatever small thing is annoying you, or ping a couple of extra points at an opponent's face that your 3-3 couldn't have attacked into, is probably worth the while. It's not incredible, but it's not... what am I trying to say? I don't know. This card is very fine. Volcanic Dragon isn't a great card. This is a strict upgrade over Volcanic Dragon. I don't know if that is enough to make it take it past not a great card. Dynamite Diver. Oh boy, this guy is something. Single red for a Goblin Pilot, not Pirate. Pirates are an entirely different group. Right. Dynamite Diver. Red. 1-1. Goblin Pilot. Goblin Pilot. I'm so used to Goblin Pirates. This creature saddles, mounts, and cruise vehicles as though its power were 2 greater. When it dies, 1 damage to any target. Okay, I have one important question here. Why the heck is Dynamite only worth 1 damage? Second question, why can I not differentiate between pilots and pirates? That is all. Leave your answers in a comment. End Rider Catalyzer. 1 and a red for a 3-1 human warrior with start your engines, and if you have max speed, you can tap it to add red. End Rider magic was developed on a world that was constantly on the move. The higher the velocity, the stronger the magic. So, we've got a 2 mana 3-1, which is a very mediocre stat line in Commander, because everyone has random 1/1 tokens that eat it, and if you can get to max speed, he becomes a pretty solid mana dork, but getting to max speed, comes several turns later, so you play this on 2, you start your engines. So, turn 5, you get to ramp with it. If you're in some sort of mono-red big, Maybe you play this? I don't know. Start until I actually get to start playing with it, I'm not sure how Start Your Engines is going to play out, and that will dictate a lot about whether or not this card is playable. Tapping for 2 mana is powerful. Doing it in mono red is very unusual. I just don't know how relevant it will be by the time you can actually activate it. End Rider Spike Spitter. 3 in a red for a 3/4 human mercenary with reach, with Start Your Engines, and if you have max speed, you get to exile the top card of your library in your upkeep and play that card this turn. Okay, 4 mana 3/4 reach, very standard card. Late game, if you can get to max speed, it becomes a card advantage engine. That's kind of nice. Is it good enough to see you play in Commander? I do not know. Probably. Like, a 3/4 reach is a defensive card, and you just sit there and find ways to ping and nickel and dime your opponents to get your speed up, and then late game this just becomes a source of a card advantage, and suddenly your opponents are looking at having to spend removal on your dorky 3/4 instead of something that might otherwise draw a removal effect. I don't hate this card. I think this is a better way to utilize Start Your Engines, where you're not looking to go fast, you're looking to just sit and grind, and late at game, get you to max speed and start pulling ahead. I don't like the name of the mechanic, or... Anyway, Fuel the Flames. 2 in a red, instant, 2 damage to each creature, cycling for 2. Pyroclasm for 1 extra mana. And play together next time. I have no idea who you are or where you're from, but sure, I'm usually up for playing somewhere or somewhen. What was I? Fuel the Flames. Instant speed Pyroclasm is probably reasonable. Cycling it away for if the game isn't good, very fine. Our world died, but we survived. Funny how it's the opposite for you. Aww. Poor Amonkhetty. Amonkhetty? The kitties of Amonkhet. The Amonkhetties. Someone must have made that joke already. Oh well. Anyway, yeah. 2 damage, instant speed, burn everything. If you play a lot of small creatures, don't play this. If you play a lot of medium-sized creatures, do play this. If you play no creatures at all, probably play this. Full Throttle. 4 red sorcery. After this main phase, there are 2 additional combat phases. At the beginning of each combat this turn, untap all creatures that attack this turn. You wanted a fight, now you've got 2. Okay, so 2 extra attacks, and they set it up nicely so that you don't have to time this for after you've already had your first combat, because this just said every combat instead of these combats. So you can do this in your first main phase and just have 3 combats in a row where everything that's attacked gets to untap. Or you can do it in your second main phase. Everything that attacked in your first main phase will proceed to untap. But everything that attacked in your first main phase, everything that attacked in your first combat will untap, ready for the next 2 additional combats. If you like having lots of attacks, this is a good card for it. 2 extra combats is a lot of extra combat, in case that wasn't obvious. Gastel Blockbuster. 2 in a red, 3/2 human berserker. When this creature enters, you may sacrifice a creature or vehicle. When you do, destroy target artifact an opponent controls. Okay, so 3 mana 3/2 enters. You sacrifice something to destroy an artifact. You sacrifice a creature or vehicle, destroy an artifact. That doesn't feel like a great exchange a lot of the time. Consider me an accident no longer waiting to happen. Sometimes you're going to be really desperate to destroy an artifact, but I'm pretty sure even red has better ways to do it than sacrificing your own board to get rid of something. Gastel Thrill Roller. 2 and a red for a 4/2 with vehicle with trample, haste. When this vehicle enters, it becomes an artifact creature until end of turn. Cruise for 2. 3 and a red, discard a card. Return this card from your graveyard to the battlefield with a finality counter on it, only as a sorcery. So, it's a 4/2 vehicle that doesn't need crewing the turn it enters, and can come back once later in the game. Seems fine. If you're playing some sort of red inclusive artifact deck that can get triggers off of artifacts hitting people, that's solid. If you're doing vehicle things where you can crew this again later, like a 4/2 is pretty vulnerable. It is quite likely to die. The fact that you can get it back once is kind of nice. Fairly expensive to do that, but I don't know. Seems fine. Gilded Goda. Goda? Goda? Do not know quite how you pronounce that word. 1 and a red for a 2/2 horse mount. When it attacks while saddled, create a treasure, and saddles for 1. So, 2 mana 2/2. Saddle for 1 to attack to make a treasure. No, that's Gouda, which is Gouda. Horse. Great. So it's just some Indian language for horse? Huh. In what? Hindi. Right. There we go. Thank you. Okay. Well, at least we've settled that. 2 mana 2/2 that you have to pay extra to get a treasure out of. Goblin Surveyor. 2 and a red for a 3/2 with trample, and it's a Goblin Scout, and this is the red entry into the start your engines and max speed, pay 3, exile from your graveyard, draw a card. 3 mana 3/2 trample is nothing really to write home about. If you're desperate to get your speed going, I guess this does. On we go. Grease Wrench Goblin. For a single red, Goblin Artificer is a 2/1. You can exhaust it to pay 2 and a red, discard up to 2 cards, then draw that many, and put a +1/+1 counter on this. A 1 mana 2/1 Goblin that can filter your hand to become a 3/2. That seems fine. Honestly, like 3 mana, discard 2, draw 2. Sure. No, it's just fine. Kill Switch finally had the right wrench for the job. Now she needed to remember what the job was. Yep, sure is a goblin. Who are just ADHD incarnate as usual. Hazaret, Godseeker. Have you looked in a mirror? Hazaret Godseeker is a legendary creature god. 1 and a red for a 5/3 indestructible haste. Start your engines. Hazoret can't attack or block unless you have max speed. 1 and tap. Target creature with power 2 or less can't be blocked this turn. So, comes down, sets it up so that your small things can't be blocked, so that your engines get started, and then becomes a 5/3 indestructible haste. Probably the best start your engines card that we have seen so far. I would predict it will be the best in the entire set on account of it being a mythic legend. But yeah, if you want to do the speed thing, this is how you do it. With your 2 mana, do nothing except enable your speed getting hit. That becomes a 5/3 indestructible. In Commander, this is better because learning constructed, because obviously if she ends up back in the command zone, you keep all the speed you've already had. So if you are already at max speed, you can just recast and immediately have a 5/3 indestructible haste to start doing stuff with. Seems like a pretty decent card. Howl Squad Heavy. 2 and a red for a 2/3 Goblin Mercenary. Start your engines. Other goblins you control have haste. At the beginning of combat on your turn, create a 1/1 Goblin creature token that attacks if able. And if you have max speed, you add red for each goblin you control. This is a quite ridiculous card. Keeps pumping out 1/1s to help you get hit and get your engines going. And then, if you've managed to keep any number of goblins around, starts producing ludicrous amounts of mana. Probably going to try and find a home for this in my Krenko Pin Street Kingpin, which is the other, not Krenko mob boss, it's the second Krenko, because Voltron shenanigans mean I am very easily hitting constantly, and then making huge amounts of mana in goblins is always fun. It is very weird to see effectively elf text in goblins, but hey, that's Magic in 2025 for you. Kick off celebrations. 1 and a red for an enchantment. Start your engines. When this enchantment enters, you may discard a card. If you do, draw 2 cards. And if you have max speed, you can sacrifice this enchantment. Creatures and vehicles you control gain haste until end of turn. So, 2 mana card filtering, get your engines going, and then late game means you can be set up for a turn where you just play a load of stuff and give it all haste. Seems fine, honestly. Doesn't really do... Gets your engines going, filters your hands for whatever you need, and then late game goes, play this, play this, play this, all my big things are out, sacrifice this, gain haste, smash. Sure. Red gets a lot of 2 mana, play this, discard a card, draw 2 cards. This being on an enchantment and only happening when it enters instead of as cast is kind of an upside, but does mean it's only sorcery speed compared to instant, which quite a few of the effects are. Having an additional max speed rules text stapled on is probably makes up for the sorcery speedness of it. Lightning Strike, 2 mana, instant, 3 damage. We've seen it 100 times. Magmakin Artillerist. 2 and a red, Elemental Pirate, 1/4. Whenever you discard 1 or more cards, this creature deals that much damage to each opponent. And cycling for 1 and a red, when you cycle this card, it deals 1 damage to each opponent. So, this is how the pirates want to get their speed up. Just get this in play, start cycling stuff, and just steadily pinging your way through. If you're playing some sort of red looting effect based deck, this is excellent. Just draw, discard, draw, discard, draw, discard. Oops, my opponents are all dead. What a pity. This is very strong for a 3-mana common. If your opponent plays it, I would recommend being afraid, because I very much doubt that they are doing fair things. I also feel like it's a bit odd that this has 1 power when it's a giant hulking lump of burning magma. But what do I know? Marauding Mako. Single red for a 1/1 shark pirate. Whenever you discard 1 or more cards, put that many +1/+1 counters on this creature, and it cycles for 2. Hey look, it's another red creature that wants you to discard things and gets really quite scary when you do. Needs a very specific deck in Commander, but could well see play in other formats where this sort of shenanigans is expected. What a bunch of junk. I'll take the lot. Yep. Sure is just a pirate that cares about discarding again. Gonna get, if you see it, it's gonna get big. Outpace Oblivion. 2 and a red for an enchantment that starts your engines. When it enters, it deals 5 damage to up to 1 target creature or planeswalker. And pay to sacrifice this, it deals 2 damage to each player who doesn't have max speed. So, a 3-mana removal spell that starts your engines, and later on can sacrifice it to hit you and everyone else to help you get towards max speed, or if you have max speed, it's just a burn effect. I am probably not a huge fan of start your engine effects on non-creatures because they make it much harder to progress your speed, but this at least does let you get 1 additional increment along the speed track, as well as being a removal spell to help clear the way so that you can attack in. Hitting planeswalkers, also nice. All in all, this is a pretty reasonable card, like 3-mana removal spell with various other options and upsides. Haste Setter Paragon. My eyes! This card is too shiny. Oh, the foil on this is going to be painful to look at, isn't it? Okay, Haste Setter Paragon. 2 and a red for a 2/3 human pilot. You can exhaust it for 2 and a red. It gets a +1/+1 counter and double strike until end of turn. That's not very exciting. If it gained double strike permanently, I would probably be on board with this card. But a 3-mana 2/3 that becomes a 3/4 with double strike once is just not good enough. Pedal to the metal. X and a red, instant. Target creature gets +X/+0 and first strike until end of turn. In lieu of brakes, the Rocketeers installed a second accelerator pedal. Of course they did. What else would they do? Right. Big pump effect. I don't know. First strike is probably the more relevant bit a lot of the time than the +X/+0, but if you're going big mana and want a way to kill someone through combat, I guess this will do it. Prow Catcher Specialist. Oh, that's where this really shines is in things like Zarda, where you put what mana you've got into this, target Zarda, which then copies it for everything else and gives you an enormous boost to your board state. Prow Catcher Specialist. 1 and a red for a 2/1 hasty Goblin Warrior. Exhausts for 3 and a red, put 2 +1/+1 counters on this. 2 mana, 2/1 haste is fine. The fact that it's a Goblin and a Warrior helps a bit, because those are both relevant creature types. And then later on, you can make it a bit bigger, so that it stays relevant into the mid-game. Nothing extraordinary, but Fine. Don't you know it's dangerous to go faster than us? Push the limit. 5 red sorcery. Return all mount and vehicle cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. Sacrifice them at the beginning of the next end step. Vehicles you control become artifact creatures until end of turn. Creatures you control gain haste until end of turn. So, late game, reanimate everything and smash in one final all or nothing, go for broke turn. Sorry, I'm just trying to process the art. This is a story spotlight card. I assume this is the end of the race where everyone is going for the absolute maximum they can. I'm just trying to process the fact that the team that we know wins is being pulled by 4 hippos. Not a creature known for their high velocity. Sure, hippos are faster than people give them credit for, but we've got some giant bird monster. We have, I don't even know, some ether-powered hoverboard nonsense. I just don't really see the hippos running. No, these are definitely hippos. Their teeth are doing funky things, but this is... I see teeth sticking up the wrong... Where's the... Look at this face shape. You've got the pink eyes, you've got the tiny little ears, you have this very rounded snoot, you have just smooth, blobby body. These are just hippos that really need to see a dentist. Reckless Velocitor. 3 and a red for a 3/3 Minotaur pilot. Whenever this creature saddles a mount or crews a vehicle during your main phase, that mount or vehicle gets +2/+0 and gains trample until end of turn. This, if you're playing a vehicles deck that can play this card, this is a very good card in that vehicles deck. Repairs are tomorrow's problems. Giving your vehicles and mounts +2/+0 and trample is a very big upgrade to a lot of them. Road Rage. Single red, instant. Deals X damage to target creature or player where X is 2 plus the number of mounts and vehicles you control. End Riders learned the rules of the road on Gastel, which means they didn't learn any rules at all. Single red, instant. Minimum of 2 damage to target creature or player and walker. It's fine. Really, you need to be in a deck where you have a decent number of mounts and vehicles, so that, because if you can get X up to 2 or 3, then single red to do 4 or 5 damage to an instant at instant speed to a creature or planeswalker is very reasonable. Sky Crash. 1 and a red, instant, destroy target artifact cycling. Not the best choice for artifact destruction, but there have definitely been worse, and the cycling means that you can at least get rid of it if you don't want it. Under Moonfall conditions, there's nothing you can do but drive and hope for the best. Spire Mech Cycle. 4 and a red for an artifact vehicle, which is a 5/4 with haste. You can crew it for 2, and you can exhaust it, tap another untapped mount or vehicle you control. This vehicle becomes an artifact creature. Put a +1/+1 counter on it for each mount and or vehicle you control other than this vehicle. This may be one of the most powerful exhaust abilities. Like, no mana cost, you just have to tap something else. It becomes an artifact creature permanently, and gets +1/+1 for each mount or vehicle you control other than this. So, in the right deck, you can exhaust it the turn it comes out, put 4 or 5 counters on it, and it immediately attack with haste, because it has haste. This has the potential to be very powerful in a mounts and or vehicles deck. If you're not in those, this is like, if you're in a deck where you can reliably exhaust it, even if you're just getting 1 counter on it, this is a good card. If you can't do that, this is not worth playing, I think. Thunderhead Gunner. Look at his mouth. He's so happy. 4 and a red for a shark pirate with reach. Discard a card, draw a card, only as a sorcery and only once each turn. Fire the cannon, mates! Fire it quick! The sea's full of chum and we want our pick! So, 5 mana, 4/5 reach. Fine, nothing exciting. Discard and draw as an option every single turn for no mana cost is strong. Just mid to late game, draw a land. Oh, I didn't want that. Discard it, get another look. Especially with the number of other things we've seen that care about discarding cards in this set. Hyrox, Saurid Tyrant. 1 and a red for a legendary creature dinosaur warrior. It's a 4/1. The Avishkari delegation considered their treaties with Saurid autocracy settled, but that was a crucial misunderstanding. To the autocracy, diplomacy is a matter of power, not paper. Testing the Grand Prix defences is merely their way of making a counter-offer. It's the red vanilla. It's a 2 mana 4/1. About it. That's all we've got to say. And we're nearly done with red. Okay. Get through these promos. Territorial Aetherkite. 4 red for a 6/5 cat dragon with flying and haste. When it enters, you get 2 energy. Then you may pay 1 or more energy. When you do, this creature deals that much damage to each other creature. Important to note that, unlike several other dragons, this does it to all creatures, not just those without flying. If you've got other energy things going on, this has the potential to be a board wipe. Without that, it still lets you ping and clear out a load of the random fodder that's built up over the course of a game. And a 6/5 flying haste is nothing to sneer at. Very reasonable big kitty dragon if you are looking for big kitties or dragons, or flying haste monsters, or ways to tidy up the board. And chain reaction we've seen, chaos warp we've seen. Okay, back into reprints. Let's get down to green for next time, and then we will call it a day. And hopefully, Friday, we can wrap this all up and get through green, multicolored, artifacts, lands, and anything else that I've forgotten about. Okay. See you all when I see you all. Should be Friday. Are there many multi-artifact and lands? There's probably at least 10 multicolored, probably more, like 20 plus. Artifacts, this is a vehicle set. I would expect there to be quite a few artifacts, and I haven't got a clue about lands. Probably 10, because there should maybe 20. We'll see. Right, where are we at? 436 travelled, and 254 we stopped moving. Put that in there so I remember it. What did I just say? 464. Right. That's been Black and Red set review. Should be back sometime Friday morning to finish this all off. Not sure exactly what time, because I am once again hoping that the engineer that said they're going to come is actually going to come on time. I am getting frustrated, but breathe, it'll be okay. Whatever. You don't need to deal with my whining. If you want to hear more of my thoughts, watch me get more exercise, go through the rest of the set, I'll see you Friday. Otherwise, we'll be back on Monday for Monday Morning Magic, next Wednesday for Well-Worn Wednesdays, where I will finally get back to playing more Hades. I have kind of missed playing that. I have been very good and not touched it since my last stream. I do not remember where we got to in that stream. And then next Friday will be... So this Friday, we'll finish the set review. Friday after will be First Time Fridays. I will pick up Spiritfarer for Session 3 of Spiritfarer? Something like that. First Time Fridays is where I play a game for a couple of months of Fridays. Just game that I've never touched before, never played before. Just have a feel, see how I like it. If I enjoy it, and the chat enjoys it, then we put it onto the list for another later Well-Worn Wednesday. If the chat isn't enjoying it, but I am, then I'll put it on my play by myself when I've got time list. If I'm not vibing it, then I'll go, great, this is a game that I never have to think about, uninstall, and leave it be. Thanks for hanging out. I will see you